Welcome back, kids, to a continuing interview with Erik Vitands, the Vagabond Bicyclist. So, a typical day as a vagabond, Erik. How does that start out?
I usually have everything set up in the morning so that when I wake up, um, I can pretty much just lean out, light my stove, and start cooking my coffee, and get that rolling. And then I'll cook and eat a breakfast there at camp.
What's
And
your breakfast?
it's not going to be always breakfast foods, although I'm often carrying eggs. Eggs is something I found until you end up in the upper 90s daytime temperatures. You can carry eggs, and you learn eventually how fresh they stay over time. And I've had a dozen eggs that I bought and used up over the course of a week, and found that they were still good eggs a week in to just being stored at room temperature and daytime temperature. So, but I have used quite a bit. I'll carry like a beans and rice kind of thing, or lentils and rice. Usually I carry bread, so I'll do peanut butter bread or bread and cheese, and just cook it up in my small little pot. Oatmeal quite a bit. Oatmeal's a good way just to kind of boil up some water, throw in your oatmeal, and you've got something to get you started. I'll cook my breakfast and clean up and finish up and start riding down the road without prepared food. And a lot of times my lunch will be just a couple slices of bread or some mixed nuts, or I might sometimes even like snack bars and snack food. But I tend to, at this point, buy a lot of ingredients and cook food,
Why is that?
just out of expense. You can buy power bars and on the go food, or even stop at restaurants or pick up deli style food. Um, but the expense adds up quite a bit, and keeping a budget like I do, which is in the range of $200 to $400 a month, you cook almost all your meals and you never eat out. That's pretty much food is basically just going to be, I'm buying ingredients, I'm buying packages of noodles and a small can of tomato paste, and mixing up what I can and doing whatever magic I can come up with at camp.
So, on a typical terrain, so I would say a certain amount of hills, certain amount of flats and whatnot. What's your range on the average, you think?
In a day, I can travel anywhere from 50 to 100 miles, uh, depending on the condition. If you've got a lot of climbing to do, that's something I've noticed, that I can climb about 6,000 feet in elevation in a day. And whether that happens over the course of 20 miles or 50 miles, 6,000 feet of climbing is about all I got in me. And that's I've noticed that after a couple of long days of climbs, and when I see that I have 6,000 to go, I know that that's going to take everything I got just to make that ascent. When you're crossing the country, if you've got winds that are either not fighting you or giving you an assist, you're going to end up in the range of 10 to 14 miles an hour average speed, and you can go as long as you want to sit in that saddle. That's what you're going to have to work with, is that average. I've put 10 hours in the saddle before to come up with just over 100 miles in a day. But these days, when I'm not on a long trek that I'm trying to get it over with, a lot of days I'll travel 20 miles, and I've backtracked. I've backtracked entirely. I've gone 20 miles, and at the end of the day, gone back 20 miles um, just because I knew the next day was going to have the same lighting, looking for photos, and I knew I had a great camp spot or whatever. So, these days I'm a little more free as far as my scheduling and time. And also my gear is a little bit heavier. I'd be pressed to put out 70 miles with as much as I'm carrying today versus a couple years ago I could have done 100 miles on that same amount of effort.
So what do you do if you have like a flat tire? Do you have like a repair kit, or
Yeah.
if you have a full blowout, do you have a spare tire, or what do you do there?
No, if you have you could have a gash in your tire, and that would pretty much stop you. There's ways to attempt to brace the inside, basically using like a credit card or some other material like that. That you just kind of bridge that gap, but when you have tires that pump up to 80 psi, it doesn't work very well. So the tire, basically, if you lose a tire because of a big cut, or a ripped sidewall or something like that, you're going to be thumbing it and looking for the next bike shop, trying to get a ride there. But otherwise, the little cuts and stuff like that, you can just patch it and get back on the road.
So we were going on Highway 199 over to Grants Pass to pick up my new e-bike, which is pretty creamy, I must say. And as we were going through the real narrow pass, about 3/4 of the way there, I noticed that, and I've thought about it often, that boy, I would hate to be on a bicycle in a road like this.
Yeah, that stretch of 199 is I've ridden up that road once, headed to Grants Pass from the coast there, and it was terrifying. That was one of the stretches of road that really sticks in my mind. That was a scary one. I have the mirror that I have mounted onto my bicycle, and I find the optics of that mirror is just right. It's mounted up high like you would expect on a motorcycle. You'd have a mirror, and that mirror does give me quite a bit of confidence and knowledge about what's going on behind me. And usually I can use that knowledge, that situational awareness, to listen for traffic. And you have a winding mountain road where there's a lot of blind corners. You'd be coming along the rock wall, snaking right, and you're up against the rock wall, and the cars that are coming around the corner have about maybe 3-4 seconds to see you and react. So I'm as lit up as possible, trying to go through there at the time of least traffic. Like, if I know that's coming up, I'll try to hit that at right before dark, so that my light has the maximum impact, and the traffic is the lightest. Like on a weekday, and the final 2-3 hours of daylight is probably one of the best times. Another good time is crack of dawn, going through someplace like that. You have to have a lot of factors. If you're trying to keep yourself safe, you're worried about the sun blinding the drivers. So the direction that you're heading in, you might want to tackle that at night rather than in the morning, or vice versa, just because the sun could be hitting some extremely dirty windshields, and people that you know that they're barely able to see out their windows. But there's times I've had heavy traffic and no space for a bicycle. You have to be in the lane, and you just have to do it. And there's very few times when I feel like it's out of my hands, and when it is, it's hellish. And you get through a road like that, and you'll never forget it.
What's the best time to avoid drunks on the road?
Probably in the evenings. The mornings was not nearly as hazardous as at night. So yeah, but I think that around holidays is when that kind of thing spikes. You'll see drivers doing weird things, and looks like they're barely able to pilot the car at times. and you might wonder what's going on there. But yeah, around the holidays is sometimes I'll just camp out and wait for it to calm down.